Imagine waking up and realizing the very people you sacrificed everything to put behind bars are already walking the streets, while the man who warned you the system was broken is out there proving it with every drop of blood he spills. Matt Murdock is haunted by a message he can't ignore. The law leaves doors open, but the Punisher closes them. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are breaking down issue number 2 of Daredevil and Punisher, titled The Broken Machine. We're following the fallout of Frank Castle's brutal lesson from last issue, as Matt struggles to maintain his sanity in broad daylight. A new mystery woman enters the scene, and a bloody subway confrontation forces these two rivals into an uneasy and deadly alliance. Let's get into why Matt Murdock's weekend just became a living nightmare. So we open up with Daredevil riding on top of a subway car in broad daylight, and right away his internal monologue is doing the heavy lifting. He's running back through everything that happened. The warehouse, the ultrasonic trap, the gun with no firing pin, Dino collapsing in front of the courthouse, and then he lands on this line that I think is the most honest thing Matt Murdock has said in a long time. He says, "The Punisher's way gets results. Mine leaves doors open." Matt isn't saying Frank is right, but he's not saying Frank is wrong either. He's acknowledging something that the Law and Order version of himself has been trying not to look at. That the revolving door he sends people through isn't just inconvenient, it's producing outcomes that he has to keep cleaning up. That line right there is the thematic engine of this entire series. He gets home, the city's still moving around him in broad daylight, which he notes is risky because he's not used to swinging around in the open like this. And the one thing on his mind before he can even think about resting is finding out how Gina Russo and Big Tony Rizzoli walked out of life sentences, because he helped put both of them away. Those were his wins, and now one of them is running a criminal coalition and the other is already dead, killed by the first one. Now before we get into all that, Matt's phone rings and it's Misty Knight calling in a favor, and we only get one side of this conversation, which is very deliberate because you can tell from the background noise that Misty is in the middle of handling some bad guys when she calls. Someone in the background is literally begging her to stop hitting them. She sets up a meeting with Matt for that night, and Matt tells her he's got something to ask her to, which sets up a thread that's gonna pay off later. And the next sequence is just Matt Murdock being a person for a minute. He jumps in the shower, and to himself he goes, "I think I'm a few inches taller from hanging upside down for so long in that warehouse." And yeah, that's funny, but it's also this small humanizing beat that I love about street level Marvel storytelling. These guys get hurt, they wake up sore, they joke about it to themselves in the shower because that's what people do. He gets out, turns on the news, and the anchor is going full breakdown. News on Dino's assassination, brazen, unidentified sniper, chaos outside Manhattan criminal court. And Matt's just sitting there, like, tell me something I don't know. And then the anchor pivots to Carlo Nucci, Dino's brother, who got killed at the top of the Empire State Building, and it hits you just how systematically Frank has been taking out this family. This isn't revenge, this is a campaign. Matt calls Foggy, gets him out of bed on a Saturday, and they meet at a diner. Along the way, Matt meets a woman named Catherine. She's new to the apartment complex Matt lives in. They get to chatting, and Matt offers to take her out for a bite so he can hear her life story. She holds him to it. And then Matt walks into the diner and meets up with Foggy. Foggy sees Catherine walking away and tells Matt he doesn't know how Matt pulls these women. Matt says, instinctively, people want to help others. In my case, it can break the ice sometimes. Foggy says, sometimes my ass. The Foggy scene is great because it gives you the contrast you need right now. Foggy is warm, grounded, a little flustered. But he's also immediately locked in when Matt starts talking about Gina Russo and Tony Rizzoli being back on the street. Foggy's first reaction is, "That's impossible," and Matt tells him Rizzoli was already killed, stabbed to death by Russo the same night they met in that warehouse. Foggy didn't see anything on the news about it because Gina moved too clean and too fast. And this is where you realize she is not a background character. She's a real threat. Matt tells Foggy to quietly dig into both cases. How did they get out? And Foggy immediately clocks that Matt looks like he hasn't slept in 3 days. He says Matt needs to hibernate till spring. Matt says he wishes. And now the book switches over to Frank Castle. We're at the Central Park Zoo. And Frank is watching zoo animals tear through what's left of Manucci's crew. Piranhas going after her men in the water. A massive serpent swallowing another one whole. And then polar bears, full-grown polar bears, attack Manucci herself. And Frank is just standing there watching it happen like it's a nature documentary. He notes that a shot went clean through his shoulder, but another took a chunk out of his rib, and it's killing him. And then in almost the same breath he says, "It's a small price to pay for watching nature do its thing." Frank is hurt, really hurt. And when he tries to wave down a cab to get somewhere he can treat the wound, no cab stops. And he goes, "Understandable. If I was a cab driver and saw me, I wouldn't pick me up either." So Frank gets on the subway bleeding, and a gang hops on the same car. They immediately clock him, a big guy in tactical gear with a skull on his chest, visibly losing blood. And the leader, this guy J.D. Smith, decides this is his moment. He tells Frank he can either hand over his shirt or they'll carve it off him. And Frank just says, "Walk away while you still can." And the gang leader laughs. But before Frank can do what Frank does, the train pulls up to a stop. And guess who's on the platform? Matt Murdock, in civilian clothes, heading to meet Misty. He hears the commotion on the car, clocks that there's blood on the windows, and immediately he knows. He gets changed and boards the train as Daredevil. And the timing here is so good because by now, the gang has Frank by the throat, like actually physically lifted, choking him out. And Frank is still somehow not passed out yet. And Daredevil's internal thought is exactly what you'd think. Castle looks hurt, stabbed and shot. How is he still standing? Because that's Frank Castle. The man is a broken machine that doesn't know how to stop running. Daredevil gets the civilians clear, starts throwing batons, and what follows is one of those chaotic close quarters fights that street level Marvel does so well. Tight spaces, too many bodies, angles matter. At one point, a gang member tries to shoot Daredevil point blank, and he blocks it with his baton and headbutts the guy into the wall. Another gang member sneaks up behind Daredevil to swing on him and accidentally clocks his own boy. And through all of this, Frank, barely standing, bleeding from his ribs, just goes, "Now I'm mad." And here's where the issue 2 earns its title, The Broken Machine, because what happens next is where this ideological clash stops being theoretical and gets completely unavoidable. They clear out the gang. Most of them are down. Frank identifies the leader, J.D. Smith, goes by the locksmith, wanted for 7 murders that they know of. And Frank's done talking. He wants him dead. And Daredevil steps in. He tells Frank, let his victims and their families find peace knowing he'll rot in a cell for the rest of his life. And Frank looks at him and says, you didn't learn a single thing the other night, did you? And Frank is not wrong that the system is flawed. Matt is not wrong that the rule of law is the foundation of a functioning society. The tragedy is that both of them are correct about different parts of the same broken reality, and neither one can fully acknowledge what the other is saying, because if they did, they'd have to change everything about themselves. Frank says his way, they never have to worry about the locksmith again. Matt says he's not going to let Frank murder him point blank. Frank says, "That's so?" And the gang leader, this guy who killed 7 people, tries to play the sympathy card. He says he's got 2 kids, and Frank says, "I expect they'll thank me." Daredevil throws his baton and knocks the gun out of Frank's hand. Frank goes, "You think I need a weapon to finish him? I am the weapon." And then he cracks the locksmith's neck right in front of Matt. Just like that, done, like it's nothing. And the last thing Frank says before he walks off the train, he gives Matt a choice: follow me or stay and help these people. Your choice, hero. And Matt's final internal thought is just, damn him, this isn't over. And that's where issue 2 ends. Issue 2 really drives home the idea that in this war, there are no easy wins, and no rest for the weary. After being freed from the warehouse, Matt confirms a devastating truth. Gina Russo and Tony Rizzoli, 2 high-level criminals he and Foggy put away for life, are back on the street. This reality check haunts Matt, even as he tries to navigate a rare moment of his personal life with his new neighbor, Catherine. Meanwhile, the carnage continues across the city as Frank Castle uses the Central Park Zoo's predators to wipe out the remaining members of Monucci's organization in a gruesome display of efficiency. The tension culminates in a brutal brawl on the Q train, where a wounded Frank is cornered by a violent gang. Despite his injuries, Frank continues his crusade, forcing Daredevil to intervene to prevent a bloodbath. The ideological gap between them turns into a physical struggle when Daredevil disarms Frank to stop an execution. However, Frank proves his point by killing the gang leader with his bare hands, leaving Matt with the impossible choice of chasing him or helping the survivors. The issue ends with the flawed system more broken than ever. Let me know in the comments, after that subway scene, do you think Matt can actually stop Frank? Or is he just running behind him cleaning up the mess? Like the video if you're enjoying the series, subscribe if you haven't, hit that bell so you can catch issue 3 when it drops, because based on where this ended, things are about to escalate in a serious way. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.